If you're looking to be an entrepreneur or you're just trying to get onto your self-improvement journey, then this video is going to teach you the 5 best pieces of advice that I've learned in the past 2 years of my entrepreneurial journey. This video is going to be different to pretty much any other video that you've seen because I'm not going to be bullshitting, I'm not going to be lying to you, I'm going to tell you the truth about what you have to do to succeed. So if you're tired of being lied to and being sold this false dream of, oh, anyone can be successful, then this is the video for you, because this isn't going to be any sort of bullshit. I'm literally just going to explain it to you straight away. And these 5 pieces of advice are in no particular order, so you can watch through any single pieces of advice that you want and skip around to whichever ones seem relevant to you. But at the end of each piece of advice that I explain, I'll break down a couple of scenarios on where that can be useful and why it's such an important lesson to learn. There's this quote that I'm sure you may have seen floating around on Instagram, and I can't remember exactly who the guy is that said it, or if he's quoting someone else, but the quote goes like this: "Every man has 2 lives, and the second life starts when he realizes he only has one." And there's another quote to further back up this sort of idea, and it's a quote by Seneca, a Roman philosopher. Now, in the quote, he goes something like this, where he says, "The fool, along with his many faults, also has this: he is always preparing to live." Essentially what these quotes are trying to tell you and trying to teach you is that your life is happening right now, right? And you need to take that in and understand that concept, because if you are constantly looking into the future or constantly looking into the past, you're never actually living. It's like that other quote: life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop around once in a while, you might just miss it. And I know that we have to look forward to our goals and our aspirations, especially being an entrepreneur. We have to pick a goal in a time and space further along in the future and look back into our history to find out our faults and, learn from them, etc. But if you spend too much time looking in the future and you spend too much time in the past, you'll miss the present. And so we need to learn to be more mindful about what's going on and how we're living, and what's truly happening right now and what is actually important right now. Because yes, getting the paycheck that says $1 million every single month is going to be absolutely, unbelievably awesome. But if you sacrifice completely your youthful years, then that $1 million check's not going to be any use for you, right? And I know that every older person, anyone's older than me because I'm 19, but we hear all of these other people who are successful and they always say that they wish they had spent more time enjoying their youth. And I know that it's absolutely cliche, and I know that you probably don't want to listen to what I'm saying right now and you want to skip along to another piece of advice, but we need to find this weird sort of balance between enjoying life and working on improving our future life, because we can't spend all of our time in the future because we'll never live in the present. And if we spend too much time in the past, then we'll always be full of regrets and worry. So how do you actually go about finding this little balance between living in the now whilst improving yourself for the future? The absolute best way that I've found to do this is by dedicating an hour or 2 a day to do activities throughout the day, whether that's taking your dog for a walk and not listening to music, whether that's sitting outside and reading the book, or literally just putting your phone down for a couple of seconds and watching the sky as it moves. Because too often do I sit inside all day trying to work on my business, or in reality, watching YouTube or whatever. And I don't actually spend enough time outside enjoying sort of the beach like I'm doing right now. And so when you're out and about, try and just take in the scenery more. Try and remove as many distractions as you can that are taking you away from this moment, and take a deep breath. Enjoy the beauty of these waves. Because I'm not always going to be here, And I mean that in both terms of here on this planet, but also here at this beach in this very moment, right? And again, I know that it's cliche, and I know that we want to spend absolutely all of our time working on our future, but we need to find some sort of balance to enjoy the right now. Because I do not want to get to be when I'm 30 or 40 years old and absolutely regret not having lived. And so that's the first piece of advice that I can truly give you that has been the most useful and the most impactful in my life. But anyway, let's get on to the next 4. Okay, so the next piece of advice is a little bit of a different one, and it's called, or the title of the section is How You Do Everything is How You Do Everything. And what I mean by this is the way that you drive to work, or the way that you spend your time at your job if you're at a job, or the way that you spend your time at school if you're still in school, or the way that you treat people, whatever it is, the way that you do everything is how you will do everything. And I know that that sounds obvious, but when I've tried to change how I act, when I've tried to sit down at my computer and do as much work as I possibly can in the most detailed, scrutinous way to maximize the productivity and the effort and the output that I can achieve through my work, I'm unable to do so. Because I don't look at everything outside of what I'm trying to do in this exact moment, because I didn't realize that how I did everything is how I did everything. And I'll give you an example of this. I've been going to the gym for the past 4 years. And throughout those 4 years, I've never really had a strict set in stone fitness plan. Never have I had a daily diet. Never have I had a macro tracker, or have I ever tracked my weights. All I would do is show up to the gym 3 to 6 times a week, do push, pull, legs, do whatever exercises I wanted to do, and train every muscle group at least twice. And I thought that this was okay. I thought that this was going to be, helpful for me. And especially not tracking my macros was leaving me unable to actually put on muscle. But enough about actually gaining muscle. The idea behind this is that I didn't take it seriously. I would lack discipline and effort and putting into the gym. I wouldn't actually create a structured routine or follow a strict diet. And so I sort of built up this habit of not really giving it my everything, where I wouldn't truly track everything that I needed to do, and I wouldn't fully set down a plan of exactly what I needed to do. And so when it came time to trying to do my work, instead of actually being able to sit down and plan out everything that I needed to do and follow that plan, I couldn't do it. Okay, and so the way that you can use this sort of knowledge to your advantage is to treat everything the way that you would want to do your work, the way that you would want to do your entrepreneurial work. Because if you sit down to do your entrepreneurial work like I would do, and I sat down at my computer and I tried to give it absolutely everything. I tried to track my days, tried to plan them out, tried to review everything that I'd done and follow a strict routine. If I didn't do that anywhere else, I won't have the training necessary. I won't have built up the discipline, essentially, or the neurological pathways to actually do that work. Because everything else that I've done is the complete opposite to that, right? And this is why I regret not actually focusing hard at school. I'm only 19. I was at school like 2 years ago, and I dropped out of my high school 1 year early. I went to university on a fully paid for scholarship. I then did 2 years out of the 3-year course. I then dropped out because I forcefully, on purpose, not handed in my final exam, so I failed the year. And I was studying cybersecurity, which would have put me on good money, but I wanted something different, which is entrepreneurship, except I didn't realize the true use of school. Because going through school, I always thought that school was this useless waste of my time, where I was never going to get that time back when I could have been spending it all on learning how to be an entrepreneur and making money, etc. But instead, I could have made school and university work for me. I could have followed the strict structures, done every single piece of my work, done excess amount of research and backing to make sure I got everything right so that I could progress to the highest level possible. Because then when I got released from school, when I got released from university, I would be an absolute machine of an entrepreneur. Except I didn't do that. And now here we are 2 years later. I've made less than $1,000 online, right? And I still struggle with consistency and discipline because I haven't built up those years of experience. So if you're going through school right now, or you're at a job that you don't want to be at, or you're doing something else like working out or trying to follow a diet, actually give it everything. And this goes into another sort of idea that I talked about that you may have seen through if you watch like animes or whatever, but some protagonists will wear weighted jackets, or they'll wear weighted ankle bracelets or weighted wrist bracelets, especially when they're training for boxing. They'll wear weights on their wrists, or they'll have weighted boxing gloves. This is because when those shackles come off, when you have trained so much at such a disadvantaged position, when you are unleashed, when the shackles come off, imagine how fast and how efficient you'll become, right? So don't think of school as this absolute waste of time. Think of school as a training ground that is trying to put you at a disadvantage where you can learn to thrive, build discipline by doing all of the research, by answering all of the questions to the absolute best of your ability, showing up and following the exact structured routines, getting home, doing all of the homework and everything like that, so that when you are no longer at school, when it comes time to being an entrepreneur, you can sit down at your desk, follow an exact structured routine, do all of the research necessary, apply all of your knowledge exactly the way it's needed to be into your entrepreneurial journey so that you can progress faster than anyone else. And I regret not using school to my advantage and letting school take advantage of me. So that's the second piece of advice that I can give you. And I'm going to make an entire video on that second piece of advice because there's so much more that I can talk about. So I hope that that second piece of advice has been useful for you, and I hope that you learn from that. All right, on to advice number 3. Okay, so advice number 3. This one is sort of a blend of two sort of ideas, and I'll try and explain them to you in the best way possible. So idea number 1 of this third piece of advice is you will always get what you've always got until you do something different. Because until you do something you've never done, you'll never get something you've never gotten. And I know that sounds obvious, but trust me, people don't understand this concept truly. And to tie this in, the second sort of idea behind this is if you want to fit in and you want to be normal, you will never be exceptional. If you want to fit in and everyone treat you exactly how they treat everyone else, and they never call you weird or silly for trying this little online business thing, then you're never going to get exceptional or weird results. You're never going to be weird and be a millionaire, because being a millionaire is weird. Building a business, spending hours and hours and hours of all of your days building a business is weird, right? And so if you're not a weird person, you'll never get weird results. If you don't do anything new, you'll never get any new results. And a lot of people don't understand this, but they also don't do more new things to get more results. And I'll give you the example in a slightly easier way. So I have only changed about 5% of what I do on a day-to-day basis, right? So I've only gotten about 5% different results than what I've always gotten. And what I mean by this is my YouTube videos and my Instagram videos, they've only grown by about 5% of what I've been able, or what I could possibly achieve in my growth, because I only changed 5% of my life. And the 5% of my life that I changed, or more or less 4 to 8% of my life, if you look at the time, 24 hours in a day, each hour of a day is 4% of that day. So what I mean by this is I changed my free time from playing video games or watching YouTube videos to doing entrepreneurial work, except this is probably only about 2 to 3 hours most days, or on average it's about 2 to 3 hours. So that's realistically only about 8% of my life has changed, right? So I've only gotten 8% different results. I've only made about 8% of the amount of money that I could possibly make because I've only changed 8% of what I do every day, right? And this stems way more than just what you do on the computer, which is what I thought all I needed to worry about was. I thought that if instead of just playing video games all day, I tried to run a business, that I would run a business to 100% of my capabilities. But you need to change everything. You need to be weird. You need to change absolutely as much of your life as possible to change as much of your results as possible. And I'm listening to this audiobook called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And he talks a lot about your day-to-day activities and how 95% of what you do by the time you turn about 35, it's automated. It's all habitual. It's all ingrained in your brain. And the worst part is these neurological connections that have become completely autonomous, they lump in together with everything else. And what I mean by this is when you get into your car and you drive to work, the feeling of getting into the car inhibits the same emotions, which will in turn inhibit roughly the same ideas as you've always gotten, right? So if you always drive the same car, or you always drive the same route, or you always talk to the same people, or you always do the same morning routine, you'll always follow the patterns of not thinking differently because you're always set in your exact way, right? And I know that it's a little bit of a weird idea, and I hope that you sort of understand this. I'm not doing the best at explaining it as I possibly could do. But your emotions and your thoughts are tied into your daily habits. So you need to break your daily habits to break yourself, to break the habit of being yourself. Because you right now are responsible for being broke, for not being fit, for not having a six-pack like myself. You yourself are responsible for all of these negative things that you say about yourself. And so instead of helping yourself through self-help videos, you need to destroy yourself. You need to get rid of the old version of yourself. You need to break the habit of being yourself to take on the form of a new person, to take on the form of a version of you who can be successful, who makes the right habits, who does the right decisions, who does the right habits and makes the right decisions. Because until you break this version of yourself, you'll never truly be able to break down all of your walls just by trying to do different things, right? You need to change 95% of what you do every single day, because that way you'll get 95% different results through different ideas that formulate in your brain, because there's different chemicals flowing in your brain, because you're moving differently, you're smelling differently, you're seeing different things. The list goes on, and I can make another video explaining this exact topic because, again, the audiobook is 10 hours long. And I've probably given you I've given you maybe like 5 minutes of useful content. So I can talk way longer and way more in depth about this concept. But change what you do every day. You'll change your thoughts. You'll change your results. That's the third piece of advice that I can give you. So on to number 4. Okay, and so the fourth piece of advice that I can give you is self-belief can cause your downfall, right? And I've experienced this personally, and so I'm going to teach you this because I know how important this sort of idea is. Now, everyone will always tell you that you need to believe in yourself. And while that's true, you cannot allow yourself to brainwash yourself into believing that you will become successful. And I'll break it down to you really simply. I would brainwash myself, every single day, where I would think these thoughts of, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to be rich. And I would be so arrogant and so ignorant of the fact that I might not be successful. And still right now, I need to drop this more. I need to spend more time to drop this arrogance and this ignorance and accept that if I don't do the work, I will not be successful. And what I mean by brainwashing yourself is I brainwash myself with so much self-belief and arrogance and ignorance that I will be successful no matter what I do. And the problem with doing this is it's a blanket statement, right? So anything that you do right now, you're trying to say that it doesn't actually have an effect on your outcomes, right? And so every now and then I would spend hours upon hours upon hours lazing away doing absolutely nothing. And I would get to the end of that and I'd break free of that and I'd become conscious again and I'd think about what I've just done and I'd realize I've just wasted like an entire day, right? Except I would tell myself it doesn't actually matter because you're still going to be successful anyway. And so I would allow myself to fall into these giant pitfalls of wasting a day upon a day upon a day until this past 2 weeks I've completely wasted. The past 2 weeks of my life, I've done zero entrepreneurial work. I haven't really learnt anything. Instead, I've been watching past F1 videos and I've been eating crappy food and not following my diet and allowing myself to fall into these pitfalls because I've hypnotized myself into believing that it doesn't matter because I'm going to be successful anyway. So, and the reason that this is so controversial, but also such a weird idea is because I don't truly know right now the best way to overcome this idea, right? Because you need to accept that you can be successful, but you need to accept that you can also not be successful. And that's a harsh truth, and that's something I don't want to accept. And so again, I brainwash myself into just sort of ignoring that entire idea and thinking that I can just be successful no matter what. Because once you truly understand that you might not be successful, once you truly understand, which I still don't, by the way, like I said, I'm still trying to understand this idea. So it's not going to take you, 5 minutes after watching this video, but you need to sit down and meditate on this idea that you might not make it. Because only once you realize you might not make it, will you actually try. It's like the first piece of advice that I gave you. Every man has 2 lives. Every entrepreneur has 2 lives. The first life ends when they realize they might not be successful. When you realize you might not be successful, you will never waste time again. You will never fall back into bad habits because you will understand that if you continue to fall into these bad habits, you won't be successful. Now, I know that I'm rambling on and I'm talking again and again and again and again and again about the exact same ideas. I'm really, truly trying my absolute hardest to drill this idea into your brain because you need to understand this. Because I wish that I understood this better because I wouldn't have wasted 2 weeks of my life. I wouldn't have wasted, almost 2 years of my life, half in, half out of trying to be an entrepreneur. That's why I don't have a successful YouTube channel. That's why I don't have a successful Instagram account. That's why I've never built a brand that actually generates any income. Because I've allowed myself to fall into these pitfalls of not doing the work, of not being focused and not being disciplined, because I've just brainwashed myself into believing that I'll be successful anyway. So that is the 4th piece of advice that I can give you that will change your life if you actually accept it. Okay, I'm sorry if you get annoyed by any of these motorbikes because a couple of motorbikes just pulled up, but we're losing daylight, so I need to film this part anyway. So this is the 5th piece of advice that I can give to you. They're looking at me. But the limit of your achievements or the limit of your success is directly proportionate to the amount of knowledge you have, right? And so how much you know dictates how much you're able to actually get out of the work that you put in, right? So if you don't know actually anything about being an entrepreneur, then it literally doesn't matter how much work you do every single day, because you don't have the knowledge to make your work, right? So as soon as you stop learning, that's the true limit of your achievements. Because in order to progress to the next level, say you're making $10,000 a month, in order for you to progress from $10,000 a month to say $100,000 a month, you need to learn so much more about the business and about being an entrepreneur and about human resources and client management and so much more, that if you don't learn, you physically cannot break that $10,000 a month barrier, right? And so that's what I mean by the limit of your success is directly proportionate to the amount of learning you do. Someone who only knows how to run a $10,000 a month business can never run a $1 billion business, because they literally do not have the knowledge to do so. They don't know how to work out who the best person to hire is. They don't know how to look, or even how to find the best manager to manage all your employees, or they don't know how to do their basic taxes so that when they start their very first business, they get hit with taxes and laws and they crumble, So you need to learn more about the business, because once you stop learning, you will stop earning anything more than what you're already getting. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. You just need to continue learning. Learning is almost as important. Well, it's technically more important than just doing the work, because if you don't have the knowledge, you can't make your work effective. But if you don't ever do the work, your knowledge is never going to be useful. So you need to find some sort of balance between the knowledge that you learn and the work that you do. Because until you find that balance, and until you continuously learn about running a bigger business and about the operations of running a successful business, you'll never be able to run a successful business, right? Simple example, if you go to the gym and you never learn how to do a bench press, you're never going to be able to do a bench press. You're never going to actually hit 2 plates on the bench, because you don't know how to bench, right? If you don't learn how to structure your workouts, you'll never structure a solid workout plan that actually hits all of your muscles, that actually trains to the fullest of each of their muscles' abilities. You'll never learn how to recover properly to maximize muscle growth, because you literally haven't learned how to do that. So you need to learn and you need to work. And that's it for the 5 pieces of advice. Thank you for watching. Peace out.